The Wall Street Journal editorial board, which is notorious for being hawkish and moronic, they released an article yesterday that may just take the cake in terms of their dumbest piece yet. Now, again, they have a lot of competition over there, but you tell me when this is through what you think. So they gave Obama advice on how to handle ISIS and what to say in his upcoming speech, his address to the nation, which is actually going to happen tonight. And here's their brilliant conclusion. Quote, Mr. Obama can blame this rising tide of disorder on George W. Bush, but the polls show the American public doesn't believe it. They know from experience that it takes time for bad policy to reveal itself in new global turmoil. They saw how the early mistakes in Iraq led to chaos until the 2007 surge saved the day. Please, I'll come back to that. And left Mr. Obama with an opportunity he squandered. They continue, and they can see now that Mr. Obama's strategy has produced terrorist victories and more danger for America. We hope tonight's speech shows a more realistic president determined to defeat the Islamic State, but whatever he says will have to overcome the doubts about American resolve that he has spread around the world for nearly 6 years. One way to start undoing the damage would be to concede that Dick Cheney was right all along. What? No, that's the Muhammad Ali of stupid statements. Like, that stupid statement beats the ass of other stupid statements. Oh my God, how crazy are these people? Are you serious? Are you serious? Dick Cheney was right all along. Now, the only area where they are correct is this idea that, well, maybe Obama's foreign policy hasn't been totally effective. But why has it not been totally effective? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because he largely continued George W. Bush and Dick Cheney's policies? They just totally overlook that. They don't go into any details, any specifics as to what exactly Obama has done and why it's bad. They just have this general emotional feeling that, well, Obama, he's a liberal, liberals are weak, so he hasn't been strong on foreign policy, and that's why ISIS exists. Or the opposite is true. George W. Bush and Dick Cheney and Obama, they were all insanely hawkish. So with the Iraq War, we literally attacked a country that didn't attack us. It was the wrong country. Saddam Hussein was not connected to al-Qaeda. In fact, he hated bin Laden and hated al-Qaeda because they would threaten his power. So we invaded a country that didn't attack us. We stayed there for a decade. And then even when Obama came in, this idea that he withdrew the troops immediately. No, he didn't. I wish he did, but we actually ended up withdrawing on George Bush's timetable. And for Afghanistan, he increased the troop levels in Afghanistan. I didn't like that. Other progressives and liberals didn't like that. We were screaming at him for that. The Republicans, that's the policy you guys wanted. He listened to you. And then also, the drone strikes. I mean, think about Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia, how we've killed so many civilians with these wanton drone strikes all over the place. And the reality is that because of George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and Obama, and how insanely hawkish they've all been, as a direct result of that, there's been an increase in terrorism. I mean, a lot of these groups did not exist before we waged the war on terror. It was the war on terror that created more terrorists. Again, because when you kill somebody's aunt or uncle or brother or sister, they could have been moderate beforehand, but now they go, oh yeah, fuck America, somebody give me a gun. I'm going to get revenge for what they did to my family and to my life. So that's the problem. The problem is we're too hawkish. Now, understand, this isn't just my opinion. This is based on multiple studies. I mean, there was one study that came out, and they came up with the term the Iraq effect. What that means is the net increase in terrorism and terrorist groups as a result of the war on terror. The CIA has their own term for it. It's called blowback. It's unintended consequences of an interventionist foreign policy. But this simpleton is like, no, we need to be more hawkish. We need to kill more people. We need to invade more in the Middle East because that'll totally solve all the problems. And Dick Cheney was 100% right. How? How was he right? The guy who was really happy about torturing was right? The guy who doesn't give a shit about our Constitution, doesn't give a shit about international law, the Geneva Conventions, the Nuremberg tribunals, doesn't give a shit about the Eighth Amendment, protection from cruel and unusual punishment. The guy who believed in what's called the unitary executive theory, that basically the United States should be a dictatorship or a fascist government where you have one ruler who makes all the decisions. That guy was right? No, that guy leads to more attacks against us. And the only area where Obama was wrong, it's all the areas where he agreed with Bush and Cheney. But it goes right over their head. I know I use this phrase too much also, but it really is the inception of stupid. Because it's a stupid point within a stupid point within a stupid point. Because he's presuming that President Obama is like a liberal person who's non-interventionist. He's not. He would have been better if he was like that, and we would have less terrorism if it was like that, right? But he's not non-interventionist. He is interventionist, and the original problem started with George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. I can't tell you how many times I've made this point. And there are people, conservatives will disagree with this, and even some liberals will disagree with it, but it's the fucking truth, okay? If Saddam Hussein was still in power today and we never went in and toppled him, guess what? ISIS would have been crushed on a Wednesday before brunch. I'm not saying I like Saddam Hussein. I'm not saying he's a good guy. I'm saying we live in a world that's not perfect. So in terms of the lesser of two evils, yes, Saddam Hussein is much less evil than ISIS, than Al-Qaeda, than Sunni jihadists who are now taking over Iraq. But what's being blamed for the current day situation? Ironically, non-interventionism. And Obama, because he's weak. Even though he's not weak, he acts a lot like Bush and Cheney. So, again, they couldn't be more wrong in every single way. Dick Cheney was not right. He was the most wrong. And everybody that came after him, whether it's President Obama or other people making national security and foreign policy decisions, the mistakes that they made were because they listened to Dick Cheney.